I took a pointer from Christiana. I'm not going to get off course tonight. I wrote down what I'm going to say. Last time I was here, actually I'm just going to read it. I'll try to narrow it a little better this time. I've spoken to so many audiences in my life, from 600 to 600 people at a time, from seminars to fundraisers to national conferences, for audiences from doctors to teachers to county councils, to legislators in Annapolis, to parents of children with disabilities. But until 2 weeks ago, standing in front of you, siblings of those with disabilities, I have never lacked for confidence. I feel like I owe you an apology for being a deer in the headlights a couple of weeks ago. All that I had formally prepared became jumbled up in my head when I stood in front of you. For the first time in my life, I had come face to face with the difficult and sad reality that my inevitable poor health or death would leave my husband and my children not only in a position for handling my decline, but of bearing the responsibility of Melanie. That night it hit me in a way that it had never hit me before. When I looked around the room and saw some tearful eyes, I realized that at 60 years old, I was closer to no longer being part of the solution. But even worse, I possibly was going to be an additional burden for my children. All my life I had taken pride in my devotion toward planning and providing the best life that I could for my husband and our 4 kids, as well as for me. I was running the show. I was coordinating everything. Here's a text I wrote to one of my best friends who has 4 children as well, and her oldest is 24 and has cerebral palsy and quadriplegia. I said, the truth is that we can make detailed plans and lay out information to lessen the confusion, but when we're gone, we cannot prevent the sadness and the hardship caused by our absence. It's just part of life. Generations before us have done it. Parents cannot prevent their children's hearts from breaking. Some break less than others, but I'm imagining my kids will be heartbroken. Everyone has his or her own story. When Melanie was last hospitalized for 42 days in 2011, together with reading a book that I came across called Being Mortal, I started thinking formally about never returning our daughter to the hospital again if she should go into seizures that cannot be stopped with all the emergency meds that we would give her. And I'm not talking about returning her to the hospital for a broken limb or pneumonia. Of course we would do that. And this would be, it's a long story, but of the complications of her health, that's where we've come to. But Jim and I decided that we didn't want to implement any heroics, which led us to meeting with a palliative care doctor that I mentioned last time, and eventually placing Melanie in a transitions program at Gilchrist. We had a long talk and thought, nothing right now would we do in terms of hospice, but she's all set and ready in case we come into a setting where we've done the paperwork, they know her, we've spent 5 hours with her, and so we've done that kind of planning. This has all grown out of us wanting to have the best life possible for Melanie, even as she lives with a chronic and kind of an incurable whatever situation. And ideally, we would like not to have to place her in a medically fragile living situation with 2 or 3 other folks. She may outlive us, and she may end up in that setting. Anyway, but we don't see her being too happy there. We don't see her thriving there. And in short, not living very long there, based on huge amounts of meds and other risk factors, is what I'm saying. But maybe there are other options out there. Maybe with her trust, her siblings can hire advocates and support staff and keep her in her own apartment. But inevitably, we expect that our other children will still have to hire someone, whether it's a personal advocate who goes and you can hire them to visit as often as you want, and trusting that our other children will have their own busy lives. But inevitably, when they hire someone who will attempt to replicate what their dad and I do, that will be impossible. Money can buy a lesser system, particularly when your sibling is considered or becomes medically fragile. And we know that system will be fraught with inevitable errors and seriously lacking love and consistency. But here is where it is vital to realize that you as siblings cannot hold yourselves responsible for everything. You cannot replicate your parents, and that's okay. In the meantime, we're going to be busy supporting Melanie to live her fullest life and making it the best, continuing to give her all the meds, everything that makes her life as comfortable and active. She will keep going to horseback riding. She will do whatever makes her happiest. So I'm going to hand each of you something real quick and say that eventually this is like your homework assignment. Now this remembers to feel like a teacher again. Okay. This is like a big homework list that can take you a long time, or you can get busy and knock it out. But if you, don't tell me, sorry, you don't get fancy paper, sorry. I know that. Here, you got two. You guys want to come get back here? Look, you got it. You can just, anyway. Okay, so basically what we did was, we took some time with our children. We gave each of our 3 children a nice notebook. And in that notebook, we've included these important documents. And this takes a lot of hard work, but we thought if we take this time to do this hard work, then we can spend the rest of the time just living life. It's a little bit like I said last time, we all get life insurance. Because we imagine the worst, you make a plan, and then you don't think about your life insurance policy. You make vacation plans, you live life. So I would suggest that you make a notebook like this. It's all in one place. I would say as parents, in the past, I've spoken to parent groups, and I give them this homework. I've never spoken to you guys and said, but as some of you have this homework already to do. Maybe your folks in this middle section, your parents, aren't able to do this for you anymore. Maybe you've already taken care of it, and you're up here. But if you get these things in one notebook, and you copy their ID card, their insurance cards, their medical assistance card, you know every name of every doctor, address, telephone number. You put every medicine they're taking. You list these things, and these are only if they pertain, obviously. If there's no trust, you don't have trust. Most people nowadays, they don't have guardianships. It's not necessary in many cases. If the person if your sibling is able to say to you and understand, I want you to make my medical decisions for me, then of course they can have a living will. If they can't make those decisions, like our daughter, then they have something called medical orders for life-sustaining treatment. That's a MOLST. You can look it up online. You type it in, you get a copy of it. It's 2 pages. It's basically a real detailed thing, like what you want done. What is it that you want done? That goes with the person when you're not with them. Some people, like we have put a DNR on Melanie now. And that says if she has stopped breathing and she is in crisis, we're not going to go through life-sustaining things to bring her back, mostly because she's developed some real serious mental illness, and Melanie doesn't laugh anymore. We've gone through 8 or 9 meds. I'm not giving up on the meds, but I'm kind of looking around and thinking, life's not that fun for her anymore. So, we'll see. And we have done prepaid funeral arrangements for my husband, for me, and as weird as all that is, you know, we picked out this little box we decided to be cremated, to let your kids, if your parents haven't shared it with you, just need to sit down and talk about it with them and see what that, and if you put these kinds of things together, this kind of stuff is hard work, but it can give you some peace. So in this table of contents, our family actually has some additional ones for Melanie. We would have things like her agreement with Harford County Housing. We went through the housing office and put her name on the list. It took 8 years for her name to come up to say, she is a poor adult. she makes less than a certain amount of money. We're going to assist with paying for part of her rent. So we would have her things in there which would make life easier for if I, had a head injury this evening. It would be a mess. Anyway, I have to finalize this book. But anyway, some of the papers are still at the lawyer's office right now. But this is what the kids have said. Mom, tell us what you're doing. We know you got stuff, but you got to share it with us. And so we've had some big family meeting, and so we would have her housing agreement in there, a copy of her DDA funding plan. If you have a sibling now and you don't know how much money has been attached to them, you should know. You're allowed to know that. A copy of her apartment lease, her SSI funding statement. What is she receiving in SSI? In the recent couple of years, we actually applied for food stamps for Melanie. We've not done that before. We applied for energy assistance in her apartment. And her Gilchrist transitions program and all the nurses we've met with. So that people would not be dumbfounded if we do end up in the hospital and we make this decision, we're not going to pursue treatment. Gilchrist will come to us and help us out of that. And so now that we've put time and thought, energy and tears into all these what-ifs, I'm hoping it's going to allow us to really concentrate on living life. And hopefully you as siblings will not isolate yourselves and fall into sad places, thinking that you're the only one living a life like yours. Hopefully you'll connect in person and online with others in your shoes and attend conferences and really keep yourselves healthy. And I think that's a good segue into Dr. Bond. There you go.
I have just a few things to say about Dr. Bond. Thanks, Mom. Me and Kathy.
By the way, there's a 5 Wishes book. Really, really helpful. You're allowed to pick this book up by just simply asking your siblings coordinator. They'll provide it. Starts the whole discussion. Okay?
Do you want to pass that around and people look at it?
Sure.
Okay.
You can all take a look. You can look at it.
Okay. So thank you, Mom. Now moving on to our main speaker of the night. I'm so very excited to introduce Dr. June Bond. Tonight is our keynote speaker. June has practiced as a school psychologist and licensed counselor at the Maryland School for the Blind for 15 years and CCBC for 25 years. She's a parent of Jeff, who has disabilities and is soon to be 40 years old, and his older sister Angie, and also another son Jason, who passed away. June has been a certified life coach since 1999, received her doctorate of education of the severely and profoundly handicapped, which what it was called at the time, and has been published in 2 books, including Freeing Godiva and The New Private Practice. I'm honored to have her speaking with us tonight on extreme self-care and its great importance in all of our lives. Please join me in giving a big round of applause for Dr. June O. Bond.